So, as we've been discussing in previous videos, Elon Musk and his so called Department of Government Efficiency have been doing a full court press against American institutions and democracy without any sort of accountability or checks and balances whatsoever. And the bad news just keeps coming in. But one of the leaders of the resistance is a friend of the stream and a Democratic congressman, Maxwell Frost. Congressman, how are you, sir?
I'm okay. I'm okay. That's the new answer. but we're pushing. It's good to be with you though.
Yeah, listen, you've been pushing quite a bit. Let's start with this for a minute. So, well, actually, first, let's recap some of the things that Elon Musk has done, and then we'll get into the push because, there's been a lot of criticism recently of the Democrats, not so much in the past couple of days, but over the past few weeks about a lack of energy in the movement overall. But you guys have been picking up steam over the past couple of days. So, again, want to be respectful of your time. Can you give us an overview of what the hell Elon Musk is doing? That should be freaking everybody out who doesn't already know.
Long story short, we got DOGE, which is the fake Department of Government Efficiency. It's not a real department. It's really an X account. And then Elon Musk and a small group of less than 10 DOGE bros, which are these young kind of computer hackers that he's hired. They're going from department to department, going in, getting into the IT system and having complete access into everything, and then providing the recommendations to Donald Trump on what should happen, and he's pretty much doing it. I actually, for one thing, Elon's really calling the shots here. It's why on the Time magazine cover today it has Elon behind the Resolute desk. He's the unelected president of the United States. And the reason everyone should be concerned here is, number one, he has everyone's information now. He has your social security number. He has all the private information that the government has on you. And it's concerning because there's absolutely no oversight. There's no one looking over his shoulder, making sure he's not stealing money, making sure he's not stealing your data and using that for his social media company that makes money from exploiting the data of Americans. There's none of that in place. And so because there's no accountability, that's terrifying to me. The other thing that's going on that should be terrifying is they're completely eviscerating the federal government department by department. And that's really concerning because they're doing it to allow these billionaires and corporations to run rampant and have no accountability. So this is really something everyone should be concerned about. This week, we started just pulling up to these agencies, which isn't normal. Usually, as a member of Congress, if I want to talk to somebody from the Treasury Department, if I want to talk with someone from the Department of Education, my staff emails them and someone comes to my office and we talk. But there's been no communication, so that's why we had to just start pulling up.
So there's so much to unpack there, and honestly, developments from just the past few hours, and quite frankly, Congressman, with all the stuff you have going on, I'm not even sure if you're aware of this. Has been reported. So a couple of things. The number one, which is Donald Trump, during a press conference today with Japan's prime minister, was asked by a Fox News reporter of all people about, Doge's access to the sensitive information. And, he's like, does Doge really need all this access? And I assume he thought, given it was Fox, that it was a layup and Trump was going to be like, oh, yeah, this is why, Musk needs all this information. And Trump admits on camera, well, no, there's really no reason for it. But, we have such weak security, anybody can access it. What does that say about the dynamic between Musk and Trump? That Trump is admitting, yeah, actually, Elon doesn't need to be doing this, but he is, and Trump seems unconcerned. Like, does he have any leverage over Trump at this, or over Musk at this point?
No, it's the other way around. Musk has the leverage over Trump. Number one, with his unlimited amounts of money that he's flowing into Republican campaigns and his campaigns. But I think that he's the one calling the shots here. He told Trump, I want to do this. And Trump is saying, go do whatever you want, get whatever information you want. And again, the biggest thing that concerns, I'm a member of the House Oversight Committee, and now I'm a ranking member on one of the lead subcommittees. And so usually, if someone would come up to me and say, is the X happening in the federal government? I could usually answer that with a high degree of confidence and certainty. If someone came up to me now, as people have been asking me, is Elon Musk stealing data or stealing money from the federal government? My answer is, I don't know. We literally have no idea. There is no system of accountability or oversight on what he's doing right now.
So what's interesting on that is not only was Trump's answer like, yeah, Musk doesn't need to have it, but, security is so low, suggesting that, again, like, did Elon just brute force his way in, or did Trump give him permission? It's so ambiguous. We also have a report from CBS News that Musk is refusing to turn over his financial disclosures, not only to the public, but also to Congress. So according to the reports, that it's a confidential financial disclosure. And when the reporter who broke the news was asked on X, does that mean that it's kept from senators? She says, correct. So a couple of things. Does Elon Musk have a way to keep his financial disclosures from even you, not just us in the public, but you as an elected representative? Because, of course, one of the primary concerns is we need to know what his conflicts of interest are. And if we don't know, at least you need to know. So can you unpack this a little bit?
And that's the problem with what's going on. Right now, Elon Musk is more powerful than any of these Senate-confirmed positions, any of these cabinet members. He is more powerful. What Donald Trump has done is they're abusing this category of federal employee. I forget the name. I think it's like special federal employee, something like that. And it's a position that was made for when a president wants to bring in someone from the private sector or bring in someone from whatever to help advise on something and give them a little bit of access to the White House or whatever for a certain period of time. They're able to do it without going through a lot of the typical ethics requirements that top staff in the government have to go through, so we can make sure there's no conflicts of interest. So this happens a lot with different owners of companies, or it could be an artist on some arts thing, right? Something like that. They're abusing this designation of the position, which allows Elon Musk to pretty much completely evade oversight accountability from Congress and from the presidency. So there's a bill Hakeem Jeffries it has either filed or it's about to be filed, but he spoke about it in a press conference that would help us put this leash on Elon and make sure there's more accountability.
Well, that's really terrifying. I mean, it's bad enough that, Musk talks a big game. Trump talks about a big game about DOGE being all about transparency and efficiency. Meanwhile, apparently it's kind of like Supreme Court checks and balances, how this rogue Supreme Court likes to impose checks and balances on others, but won't receive any. Musk loves to talk about efficiency and transparency for you all and for other elements of government, but he doesn't want to be subject to any.
You gotta trust him. You just got to trust him, because he's a very trustable guy that, grew up in apartheid and completely made all of his money from being a Nepo baby and leeching on government contracts, for sure. You just got to trust him.
And making some very strange hand gestures in front of crowds. Yeah, it's very suspicious. Yeah.
His heart goes out to everybody. Just trust him.
It's really disturbing. You all did in House Oversight attempt to force a vote to hold Elon Musk accountable by issuing a subpoena. And it was a pretty clever move based on the reporting I've seen, where there weren't enough Republicans, or you thought there might not be enough Republicans to outman the vote. And it looks like it was overruled by a vote of 1. Do you expect Elon Musk to testify under oath at any point before you guys, or do you think he's going to fight like hell to avoid it?
I think he's going to fight like hell to avoid it. I mean, he's been tweeting at me randomly. If I was the richest guy on earth, the last thing I would be doing is tweeting 28-year-old Congressman Maxwell Frost. But he's always tweeting at me and other people. And I told him on Twitter, I was like, come and speak to us. Come and speak under oath to the Oversight Committee if there's nothing to hide. But I don't think he's going to do that. And so that's why we moved to subpoena him. And it was Ranking Member Jerry Connolly who went forward with that. I thought it was a good move. And he called it at the right time. The Republicans were too far. But, they ran like hell to go and block that, to go and shield Elon Musk from any accountability. But here's the thing. It can't be the last time we do that. We're going to keep doing other things. We're going to be strategic about it. Some people online have said you should, move to do that every day. Well, the problem is if the Republicans catch on, they'll just stick around. And we don't have the votes in that committee. So we have to be tactful, and we have to do it at the right time. But we will catch them slipping, whether it's with that vote or something else.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things that I know everyone is calling on Democrats to do more, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But numbers are numbers, and right now the math is not on your side, so you have to be pretty clever about when and where you deploy votes. But let's. I
just got a text from my comms director that Elon just tweeted under my tweet about getting Department of Education. And he said, no such department exists in the federal government. Is that him breaking news that the Department of Education doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah. Is he saying that Trump has done what's rumored to be on the agenda, which is try to abolish the Department of Education by executive fiat? Is he trolling? Is he just dumb? That's the problem with Elon Musk. It's like when you're trying to figure out, is he an authoritarian? Is he a troll? Or is he stupid? He does all three of these things very well in terms of impression. So, they've been rumored to be doing a full court press on the DOE, and I'm sure they're not going to stop there as well. So let's turn to the topic of Democrats pushing. So, again, math is math. You don't have the White House, you don't have the House, you don't have the Senate. I know the House margins are thin; they're going to get thinner as people leave Congress and special elections take place. So there might be some leverage coming down the pipe. Right now, what you all have is messaging and rhetoric and trying to energize a quite frankly demoralized base. From my outside perspective, the first 2 weeks, Congressman, with very few exceptions, yourself among them, the Democratic Party was not showing its best. They seemed to be exhausted. They seemed to be missing in action. But over the past couple of days, you guys have held rallies. You showed up in front of government buildings. What's like the game plan? Was it like, did you take a couple of weeks to strategize? Was this kind of a spur of the moment thing, saying, you know what, we got to get off the mat? What can people expect moving forward?
I think a big part of it, and this isn't like an excuse sort of thing, but I think important for people to know, I think a big part of it is that when we came in, certified the election, and then we had about a week of session while Joe Biden was still president, and then it was before the inauguration, and then we went home. We were out of session for, I think it was like a week and a half or something like that. And I think not being in DC and just kind of being disconnected in that way created this situation where, a lot of people were seeing things go on and people were asking where the Democrats, and it's, we were in our districts at home. And so I think that's a part of it, not the only thing, but I think it was a part of it. But I do think people were hungry for that direction. I love, Hakeem Jeffries put out a letter with a 10-point plan that I actually think is really good and explains all the things we can do. And I think that's important. But the most important thing that you brought up that's really started this week is showing people that we're willing to fight and getting caught fighting. And we know that being not having all the seats we want in Congress makes it so that way we're limited in a lot of the institutional things we can do. And so our options are limited. However, when your options are limited, is the answer isn't, saying there's nothing and walking away. The answer is saying we're going to do those limited things full out all the time. And that's communication. It's obstructing things that are going to hurt the American people, making sure that we are delaying, using the procedural tactics that we can, like we did with the subpoena on Elon Musk. It didn't work that time, but you keep going with it. You do all these things and you do them at the highest level and then as much as you can. And that's how I've been saying this. We're not the minority. We're the opposition. And that's the way you got to think about it over the next 2 years.
No, I think that's great. I think, unfortunately, Democrats, for better or worse, have had a long institutional memory of trying to act in good faith because they're really the only party that does. I've started to see signs of increasing ruthlessness, which is good because, quite frankly, it's what your voters like me want. We want to see you guys obviously not take it to the extent that Republicans do. My God, they tried to stage a coup. But to start to play the game of politics hardball. A good example of this has been on the debt ceiling. I want to give you and Leader Jeffries and your colleagues in both chambers a lot of credit because I was concerned at the end of last year that you would fold to Donald Trump's demands to raise the debt ceiling on President Biden's watch and just that way basically give him a blank check to cut taxes for the rich. And instead you said, no, you're going to extend the political capital to get this done. You have your mandate, you have your landslide, you get it done. Will that attitude persist once the debt ceiling comes up? Because that's going to come up in the near future. Do you expect that Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries will say, you know what? No, if you need our votes, you will make concessions to us?
That's my hope, especially with what's going on. I mean, we can't act like everything is normal. Like, not everything is normal right now. It's not President Mitt Romney or President, whatever, and insert random conservative here. I mean, we're in a very serious situation where we have a president who's intentionally doing things he knows is illegal. And this is part of the tactic of Project 2025 is they're doing things they know are illegal, so that way it gets all the way up to the Supreme Court, and then they hope and pray that the Supreme Court will change long-standing legal precedent and give him more power to do whatever the hell he wants. And so we have to treat this like it's not normal. There's a lot of people who have brought up like, well, does that mean you're not going to get anything done? It's the legislation. No, like a lot of people don't understand that. I have a lot of bipartisan bills. All those things don't just die. Like I'm still working on those. We're still doing it. But when you take a step back and you have these big, overreaching bills, and that's what we call the must-pass legislation, and we have that, those are big fights, and you got to take a stand. So my hope is that we take a stand, and that we hold strong, and that we don't give them what they're asking for, because they do need us. They need us to pass a lot of this. This is why they're having this whole conversation on budget reconciliation, because they can't do anything the normal way because their guys are too busy fighting. So they have to do it through reconciliation to get exactly what they want. But even that process is not going well for them right now. And so I said this in an interview, and I want to be careful. I'm not saying things are okay. Things are really bad right now. Like we have a lot of work to do, but there are opportunities. And people have to think about it this way. If they flub reconciliation, that's their shot at a big bill getting passed in the next 2 years, with the budget. That's their shot. If they flub that or they don't get everything they want, there is no way in hell they can pass a bill the normal way and get everything they want because they need Democrats. And so it's something we should pay attention to. I think all these are executive orders. It's a sign of Project 2025, but it's also a sign of weakness, because if you had the legislative juice to do what you wanted to do, all those EOs would be just one big bill. It'd be a bill that Congress would have already passed. I mean, if you go back 4 years ago today, the Joe Biden and the Democratic Congress were already working on big bills. And so, again, as this isn't copium, some people are going to listen and be like, "Oh, he's just copium." It's not. What I'm trying to do is point out opportunities, and we have to look at the strengths of our opposition. Yes, what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right, but we also have to look at where we think they're weak, and they are weak in the world of passing legislation, which means it gives us more leverage, and we have to use that leverage every opportunity we can.
Yeah, so I've got two more questions for you. One last question, or the first of the two last questions is, early on during the election as it was winding down, and even afterwards, there was a sense among some of your colleagues, both in the House and the Senate, that, what, maybe we can work with DOGE and Elon Musk and Trump in general, some of the more moderate members, many of whom I like. Now, my thought process at the time was that is, I think, politically risky and very naive, because you're not dealing with good faith actors. In light of all that's gone on with DOGE, I'm not asking you necessarily to speak for any of your colleagues, but are you getting the sense that there are people who still have faith that DOGE can be a good faith partner? Or are you starting to see more skepticism from those who were previously willing to work with them?
I'm seeing skepticism. I've already seen two members who publicly are expressing that skepticism. One of my colleagues, Jared Moskowitz, who was the first Democrat to join DOGE, he tweeted, he said, "Look, I was the first person to step in good faith to see if we could work with these guys, and now I'm seeing like it's not legit. I mean, it's not real." And in a sense, Jared has a lot of credibility in being able to say it because he did step out in good faith to be a part of it. And sometimes that's the reason people show good faith. It's or people take that step. It's not because they believe anything will happen, or maybe it will, but because they want to call their bluff. We saw it happen with Bernie Sanders last year. He came out and said, "Hey, if they want to cut spending, I'm down. Let's look at the biggest thing we spend money on in terms of that kind of spending, and that's the DOD budget." And he wrote a whole letter and put it out. A lot of people, said, "Bernie, what are you doing? You want to work with Trump?" And now we're seeing, Trump is full of BS, and they're not going to do that. And so I say that to say, sometimes I think we should always try to give our own team the benefit of the doubt and kind of see like, what's the tactic here? A lot of the members who like joined DOGE and stuff like that now they're saying, dude, they're not serious about this, because we can't let them own government efficiency. I mean, I'm in the government efficiency. My chief of staff was the staff director of the Committee on Modernization for Congress. Like, I'm all about modernizing government, everything like that. But what they're doing isn't that. What they're doing is they're trying to eviscerate government and make it work in a very poor way so they can privatize everything, make money off of everything, and then make it so billionaires can run rampant and corporations can run rampant. So they're full of shit, and we got to call it out. And and then we got to, look at what actual efficiency is.
Yeah, I think we haven't seen much by way of efficiency so far from this administration. Very last question, Congressman. You've told us what you and your colleagues and your caucus are planning on doing. What would you like from viewers, from people on the outside, from people like me in the alternate media space? How can we help you from this minority position resist Donald Trump and Elon Musk?
Well, a big thing people can do is help us put a lot of pressure on these like moderate Republicans in these swing districts. Because, for instance, when Hakeem introduces that bill that will put accountability on Elon Musk, if every Democrat gets behind it, guess what? We just need three. We just need three Republicans to get on board with it, and then it's law. Or not it's law, but, because Trump would probably veto it, but we just need three Republicans to advance it and get it to the next stage. And so putting that pressure on them, I think, is really important because, to be honest, a lot of them aren't feeling that pressure right now. They're seeing that there's a lot of pressure on Democrats, which is important. I'm not telling people don't reach out to elected officials. Well, no matter what party you are at, people should reach out to elected officials if they want to see them do more. I think that's an important part of democracy. But also, let's put some pressure on these Republicans that are completely bowing, and these like moderates who in their district act moderate for to win an election, but at the end of the day, they're doing full MAGA stuff and doing whatever Trump wants. And so I think calling those offices is really important. Protesting is really important. Getting out on the streets is really important, but also educating people in your network. Don't assume that everyone is paying attention to what's going on, because a lot of people aren't, to be honest. A lot of people just know some crazy stuff is going on. They're not 100% sure what it is. And that is part of their playbook, right? There's that famous Steve Bannon quote where he said, flood the zone with shit, is what he said. And part of that is to have the general public be kind of like, what's going on? Like, I actually don't know exactly what's going on, but something's going on. And when people are in that state of kind of being disoriented, there's a big void in fact. And the right wing does a really good job of filling it with the shit and filling it with the lies. I can't tell you how many texts I got yesterday because the White House press secretary came out and said, we're unveiling the big tax proposal. The first three things in it: eliminate tax on tips, eliminate tax on Social Security, and eliminate tax on overtime pay. I had friends who are progressive who texted me a screenshot of that and said, well, this actually doesn't seem too bad. It's like, dude, they mentioned three things that they're throwing in there to throw you a bone, but most of that tax bill is going to be helping the richest people in this country, and it's actually going to make your life worse, right? And so we all need to be singing that chorus, elected officials, but also everybody. A resistance has to be with the people, right? Of and with the people, with elected officials, with organizers, activists, and so just like educating your social media, your friends, your family, your church, everybody on what actually is going on, it's going to be really important because now we're battling these social media oligarchs that literally own the new age town square. And that's some scary, scary stuff. And so to battle it, we have to be organizing.
Yeah, no, it's truly terrifying. You are up against, yes, some genuinely incompetent people who also wield an enormous amount of power, and that's quite frankly a dangerous combination. Sure. But Congressman, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for filling us in on what's going on. I'm sure we'll be discussing it in the future, and keep up the crusade, man. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.